You are afraid of the end. It is the primal fear that drives every heartbeat, every breath, every choice you make. You look at the dark and you imagine a moment where the screen goes black, where the thoughts stop, where the you that is listening to my voice simply ceases to be. You comfort yourself with religion or you terrify yourself with nihilism, but both agree on one thing: death is inevitable. The curtain must fall. But what if I told you that this is a lie? What if I told you that the mathematics of quantum mechanics, the same mathematics that allowed us to split the atom and burn the sky, implies something far more terrifying than death? What if the equation suggests that you, the subjective observer, can never leave the room? You are not mortal. You are trapped. You are condemned to exist forever. This is not a ghost story. This is not a religious promise of the afterlife. This is the logical conclusion of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. It is called quantum immortality, and if it is true, then the silence you fear will never come. To understand why you are cursed to survive, we must look at the machinery of reality. We must look at the wave function. In classical physics, the world is a single timeline. A ball rolls left or it rolls right. A cat is alive or it is dead. But in the 1950s, a physicist named Hugh Everett looked at the math and realized we were interpreting it wrong. He saw that subatomic particles do not choose one path. They take every path. An electron does not spin up or down. It spins up and down simultaneously. It exists in a superposition of all possibilities. Now, the standard interpretation, the Copenhagen interpretation, says that when you measure the electron, the wave function collapses. All the possibilities disappear and only one becomes real. But Everett asked a dangerous question. Why? Why should nature throw away perfectly good possibilities? Why should the math stop working just because a human looked at it? Everett proposed that the wave function never collapses. Instead, the universe splits. Imagine a road that forks. In a classical universe, you must choose left or right. In a quantum universe, you take both, but you splits. There is a version of you that goes left and a version of you that goes right. These two versions are now in separate universes, invisible to each other, each believing they are the real you. They are both right. This happens not just when you walk down a road, but every time an atom interacts with another atom. Trillions of times a second, the universe is shattering into infinite branches, a fractal tree of reality growing at the speed of light. This is the many worlds theory. It is accepted by many of the brightest minds in physics, but very few of them like to talk about what it means for death. Let us conduct a thought experiment. It is a grim experiment, but physics does not care about your comfort. We call it quantum suicide. Imagine a machine, a gun pointed at your head, but this is not a normal gun. It is triggered by a quantum device, a spin detector measuring a single electron. If the electron spins up, the gun fires. If the electron spins down, the gun clicks harmlessly. The odds are exactly 50-50. You sit in the chair, you press the button. What happens? From the perspective of an observer standing outside the room, the result is simple. In half the universes, the gun fires and you die. The observer sees a body. They bury you. They mourn you. Your story in that timeline ends. But what happens from your perspective? You are the one in the chair. You press the button. In the universe where the gun fires, your consciousness is instantly extinguished. You are not there to experience the darkness. You are not there to say, "Oh, I died." There is no you left to observe the death. But in the other universe, the universe where the electron spun down, you hear a click. You are still alive. You are still conscious. To you, the gun failed. So you press it again. Click. You press it again. Click. You press it again. Click. You could press that button 10 times. The odds of surviving 10 times in a row are 1 in 1,000. But remember, the universe splits every time. There is a branch where you died on the first shot. A branch where you died on the second. A branch where you died on the third. Those branches are filled with corpses, but you, the conscious observer, can only exist in the branch that sustains life. By definition, you cannot be in a branch where you do not exist. Therefore, from your subjective point of view, the gun will never fire. You will sit in that chair for eternity, pressing the button, listening to the click, wondering why you are so lucky. You are not lucky. You are simply the data that survived. You are suffering from the ultimate survivorship bias. This implies something horrifying. It implies that from your own first-person perspective, you can never die, because death is, by definition, the end of observation. If there is any non-zero probability of survival, no matter how small, no matter how unlikely, your consciousness will follow that path. It is like a stream of water. If you block 99% of the channel, the water does not stop. It flows through the 1% that remains. Your consciousness flows into the future where you survive. Always. Now you might say, I'm not sitting in a chair playing Russian roulette. This doesn't apply to me, doesn't it? Life is a quantum suicide machine. We just play the game slower. Every day you get in your car, you are pulling the trigger. There is a probability, a small one, but a real one, that a truck drifts into your lane. In most timelines, you arrive at work safely. In some timelines, you die. But you, the observer, will always find yourself in the timeline where you swerved, where the brakes worked, where you walked away shaking, telling your friends, I can't believe I survived that. Think back to a moment in your life where you had a close call, a childhood illness, a slip on a ledge, a car accident where the glass shattered but you didn't, a night you drank too much. In the branches of the multiverse branching off from those moments, you are dead. Your funeral has already happened. Your mother has already wept over your grave. The version of you that died is gone, but you are here. You are the version that made it. You are the anomaly. To you, it feels like luck. To the physics, it is a necessity. You are surfing the wave of survival. And this leads us to the curse, because immortal does not mean invincible. It does not mean young. This is where the many worlds interpretation turns from a hope into a horror story. The theory requires that you survive. It does not require that you are happy. It does not require that you are healthy. It only requires that you are conscious. Consider the process of aging. Biology is a series of chemical reactions, quantum events, cells dividing, DNA replicating, neurons firing, entropy attacking the system. In the vast majority of timelines, the human body breaks down and dies around 80 or 90 years old, but vast majority is not all. There are always statistical outliers. There are always branches where the cancer cell fails to replicate, where the heart beats one more time, where the stroke is minor instead of fatal. As you age, the number of timelines where you die increases. The probability of death approaches 100%, but it never reaches exactly 100%. There is always a quantum probability, 1 in a trillion, 1 in a quadrillion, that the thermodynamic fluctuations keep your brain running, that the oxygen continues to reach the neurons. And you, the observer, you are forced into that 1 in a trillion branch. Imagine being 120 years old. Your friends are gone, your family is gone, you are frail, you are tired, you are ready to sleep. But the quantum coin keeps landing on heads. You survive the pneumonia, you survive the heart failure, you survive the system collapse, you keep aging. 130, 150, 200. In the eyes of the rest of the world, you become a medical miracle, then a curiosity, then a freak. But mostly, the world assumes you died. In the main branches of the tree, you are long dead. But in your thin, twisted branch of reality, you linger. You become a prisoner of your own consciousness, unable to check out, unable to leave the stage. This is the Tithonus error. In Greek mythology, Tithonus was a mortal lover of the goddess of the dawn. She asked Zeus to make him immortal, but she forgot to ask for eternal youth. So Tithonus lived forever, but he grew older and weaker and more withered, shrinking until he was just a voice babbling in a jar. Quantum immortality is the Tithonus error made real by physics. You might find yourself in a future where you are sustained by machines, a brain in a vat, watching the heat death of the universe. simply because the probability of the machine failing is non-zero, and your consciousness must go somewhere. Now look at the nature of nothingness. Why is it so hard to imagine being dead? Try it. Try to imagine what it is like to not exist. You can't. You imagine a dark room, but a dark room is something. You imagine silence, but silence is something. You imagine time passing without you, but that is still an imagination. You cannot simulate non-existence because simulation requires a simulator. Your brain cannot process its own absence. This might be more than a psychological quirk. It might be a fundamental truth of the system. The anthropic principle states that we observe the universe to be the way it is because if it were different, we wouldn't be here to observe it. We can extend this to the subjective anthropic principle. You observe yourself to be alive because you cannot observe yourself being dead. Consciousness is a one-way street. It has no off-ramp. If the timeline ends, the camera doesn't turn off. It just pans to a timeline that didn't end. This changes everything about how you view your life. It means you are alone in a way that is difficult to describe, because the people around you, they are not immortal in your timeline. You will watch them die. You will bury your parents. You will bury your spouse. You might bury your children. In your timeline, they are mortal. They succumb to the probabilities, but in their timelines, they are burying you. In their reality, they are the ones surviving the car crash, and you are the tragic victim. We are all immortal in our own private universes, leaving a trail of corpses in each other's worlds. We are lonely gods, intersecting for brief moments before the wave function splits us apart. There is a terrifying symmetry to this. I built a bomb. I unleashed a weapon that could erase thousands of lives in a flash of light. I looked at the data and I saw the probability of annihilation. But under the rules of quantum immortality, the victims of Hiroshima, did they die? In my world, yes. In your world, yes. The shadows burned onto the pavement tell the story, but from their perspective, in the split second of the detonation, the universe shattered into infinite branches. In most, they vaporized, but in the branches where the bomb failed, where the neutron flux didn't achieve criticality, where they were standing behind a lead wall they didn't know was there, they survived. They walked out of the ashes, confused, scarred, but conscious. They continued their lives in a timeline where the bomb was a dud, a timeline that looks increasingly improbable, increasingly strange, but a timeline that exists nonetheless. Does this absolve me of my sin? No, because I still destroyed them in this world. I still created the grief in this reality, but it adds a layer of complexity to the cosmos that makes the blood run cold. It implies that every tragedy is only a tragedy for the witnesses, not the victim. The victim is pushed into a new, stranger world where the tragedy didn't happen. And what happens at the end of everything? What happens when the sun expands and eats the earth? Surely you die then. Surely the heat death of the universe is the final wall. Perhaps. Or perhaps you will find yourself against all odds on a colony ship. Or perhaps, as the biology fails, you will find yourself as a digital consciousness. Or perhaps, in the deep time of the cosmos, you will become a Boltzmann brain, a random fluctuation of consciousness floating in the void, remembering a life that ended billions of years ago. If probability dictates that consciousness must continue, then the universe will bend over backward to keep you aware. It will create miracles. It will create impossible coincidences. It will rearrange the stars themselves if that is what is required to keep the observer function running. This is the ultimate ego trip and the ultimate nightmare. The universe exists for you, not because it loves you, but because without you, it has no definition. You might be asking, is there any evidence for this, or is this just madness? Well, look at the world around you. Does it feel stable, or does it feel like things are getting weirder, more unlikely? Look at history. Look at the number of times we nearly nuked ourselves during the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the submarine captains who refused to fire, the computer glitches that almost launched the missiles. We have survived an impossible number of coin flips. The odds of humanity surviving the 20th century without a nuclear war were tiny. Yet here we are. Why? Maybe we are in the survivor branch. Maybe in the vast majority of universes, Earth is a radioactive wasteland, but we are conscious, so we must be in the timeline that didn't end. We look at our history and say, wow, we were lucky. We weren't lucky. We are simply the data that is left over. This suggests that as time goes on, as you get older, the world will get stranger, because the only timelines that sustain you are the highly improbable ones. You will see politics, weather, and technology become increasingly absurd, because you are drifting further and further from the center of the probability curve. You are riding the edge of the wave, where the water is turbulent and chaotic. This is why reality feels like it is glitching. This is why the news feels like a satire. You have lived too long. You have survived too many filters. You have drifted into a timeline that is barely holding together. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we live if we cannot die? Some would say it gives us permission to be reckless, to jump off cliffs, to play with fire. But I say it is the opposite. It is a warning, because while you cannot die, you can suffer. You can break every bone in your body and survive. You can lose your mind and survive. You can live in pain for 1,000 years. The goal of life should not be to survive. Survival is guaranteed by the math. The goal should be to ensure that the timeline you are trapped in is a good one. You want to stay in the high probability branches where you are healthy, where you are loved, where the world makes sense. You do not want to force the universe to resort to miracles to keep you alive, because quantum miracles are usually nightmares in disguise. We spend our lives running from the Reaper. We build hospitals. We invent medicines. We look both ways before crossing the street. We think we are fighting for more time, but the time is already infinite. We are fighting for quality. We are fighting to stay in the light rather than drifting into the dark, lonely branches of the tree where we are the only leaf left. You are not a candle that blows out. You are a fire that burns until it consumes the fuel, and then burns the wood, and then burns the stone, and then burns the vacuum itself. You are a singularity of awareness. The universe splits around you like water around a rock. So the next time you close your eyes and fear the darkness, remember, the darkness is not what you should fear. You should fear the light that never dims. You should fear the alarm clock that rings forever. You should fear the realization that you have bought a ticket for a ride that has no exit. You are here, you are always here, and you will always be here, watching the stars turn, watching the galaxies fade, watching the clock tick. Tick, tick, tick. The gun clicks, the car swerves, the cancer recedes, the bomb fails. Welcome to immortality. It is not a gift, it is a sentence, and you are serving life. And perhaps deep down you have always known this. Have you ever had that feeling late at night that you should have died? That moment on the highway, that fever when you were a child, that shadow in your memory? You are right. You did die, but that was someone else's universe. In this one, you are still watching, and you always will be. There is a version of you that died today, but you will never meet him. You are condemned to be the survivor, so take a breath. Feel the air in your lungs, it is not going anywhere, and neither are you. End of transmission.